I call the Honourable Member Gareth Hughes.
Kia ora, Mr Speaker. Ngā mihi nui kia koutou kia ora. It's great to take a call on the third reading of this bill, and I'd like to acknowledge the Select Committee members, the officials, everyone who came to the Select Committee and submitted. I'd like to acknowledge Darren Hughes, who introduced a supplementary order paper and was involved in the submission process. The Green Party acknowledge also the importance of road safety. Every death that occurs in our road is a tragedy. Many of us in this chamber have been impacted by deaths or serious accidents on our roads, and every single one is a tragedy. We need to do everything we can do to make sure we have fewer and fewer tragedies every year. The Green Party will be supporting this bill, and we support the intent to make our roads safer. We believe genuinely this bill will make our roads safer. However, we lament the missed opportunity. There was some once in possibly a decade or a generation opportunities we could have taken with this bill to actually reduce the blood alcohol content while the stars were aligned. And also we're missing the opportunity because while we're talking about safer journeys, the NZTA's discussion document, while we're passing this legislation today to make our roads safer, what's happening with the road transport planning, road transport funding in New Zealand does the opposite. In fact, what we're doing is becoming more dependent on our cars, more dependent on heavy trucks, more dependent on oil, which is going to see more of us and more of our whānau be impacted by deaths on our roads. The most effective thing we could be doing to reduce the road toll in New Zealand is to be reducing the number of cars on our roads by giving people real options to safely bike to work, to take a train that's reliable, to take a bus which is affordable and convenient. Those are the things we need to be talking about. Those are the opportunities we've missed. Because when we look at the context, this government, and it's a pity Stephen Joyce has left the chamber because he's just released his draft government policy statement. And what Stephen Joyce has done is literally raided the transport pantry to fund his pet 7 roads of national significance. In fact, with his latest GPS, he's actually got the crumbs to fund these 4 new roads of national significance. I don't want to speak badly of the Taupo to Cambridge road or people that frequent that road, but I don't... What is the cost-benefit ratio? It's a good question. The fact is, more people drive on big city arterial roads or the Kopu Bridge than they do on this road. There's a distinct smell of pork when it comes to that road and some of the other 4 new roads of national significance. Because the flip side is that as Stephen Joyce has raided the pantry to fund his pet roads, there's just no more money for these alternatives, which we need in 2011 to deal with the climate crisis, to deal with the oil crisis, to deal with the inequality crisis, and the lack of real affordable options that many Kiwi families have to get to work. In the latest government policy statement, the budget for public transport infrastructure declines seriously over the next 10 years. It's necessary now that we start work on Auckland's inner-city CBD rail loop. It's essential now we start work on Wellington City's light rail system. We do need government to step up to the plate. At the moment, for every dollar they're spending on walking, cycling, buses, trains, this government's pouring $7 on their pet 7 political roads of National Party significance. It's mad for the climate when our emissions have increased 70% since 1990. It's mad when you consider oil is now the most expensive ever in our country's history at $2.21 a litre. It's mad when you consider we're in the midst of an obesity crisis and more people die from air pollution from road transport than they do from road accidents on our roads. And it's mad if road safety is what you're trying to achieve. Mr Speaker, we support this bill, but we want it to go further. We will be voting, but we do lament those opportunities. We agree that the driving age for 15-year-olds should be increased to 16, and I think the member, Lise Galloway, might like to look at some of the evidence, because I have seen that evidence and I believe it is compelling. I didn't want to raise or support raising the age to 16. As soon as I turned 15, I went and got my driver's licence. As soon as I could, I got a car. Just like so many Kiwi kids do, the first thing they want to do is get around driving their cars. And the fact is that many Kiwi 15-year-olds just don't have realistic alternatives to get to work, to get to school. We support the alcohol interlocks. We support the 0 blood alcohol level for repeat drink drivers. We support those increased sanctions for repeat drink drive offences. We even support changing the procedures around how we deal with blood specimens and clarifying the roles of parking wardens and a whole host more of maybe the smaller, less controversial measures in this bill. But the 3 parts of this bill where we do seriously disagree is when it comes to the youth blood alcohol level, the treatment, and then again, which Labour's rightly pointed out, the urgent need to reduce the blood alcohol level for over 20-year-olds to 0.05. Firstly, looking at the youth issue, we've dropped it to zero, effectively 0.03. We believe this is scapegoating our young people. The real issue is 92% of heavy drinking in this country is by over 20-year-olds. It's politically expedient to focus just on the under 20-year-olds when many of them don't in fact vote for the governing party for rightful reasons. It's convenient to target them and ignore the big important issue, which is adult drink driving, and in fact the broader issue that we've got a drinking problem in this country. Treatment is missing from the bill. Perhaps it didn't have to be in this legislation, but I think the government needs to step up to the plate with more support for alcohol treatment. We know that 80% of repeat drink drivers in New Zealand have a drinking problem, yet only 5% of those 30,000 people convicted annually for drink driving offences get any sort of alcohol treatment. Only 5%. We need to be stepping this up. Clearly, as a nation, we do have a drinking problem. It's $4 billion in social costs. And at the same time as this legislation is going through, we've got the Alcohol Reform Bill going through, which comes from the Law Commission report to try and tackle the serious issue, our cultural problem with drinking in New Zealand. And unfortunately, this bill adopts the same position of that bill, which is it's politically expedient to target young people and not look at the bigger, more fundamental structural reasons why we have a drinking problem in New Zealand. So for that bill, the focus is on the split regime, or whether we raise the purchasing age for 18 and 19-year-olds to 20, and we're ignoring the pervasive $70+ million alcohol advertising industry. We're ignoring the pervasive sponsorship of events and university orientation of sports clubs. I believe it is in scope. Mr Woodhouse, it ignores the accessibility, the issues of hours and price.
Point of order. The Honourable Member, Michael Woodhouse.
There are successive Speaker's rulings on scope and third reading, and I suggest that Mr Hughes's debates on the merits of the alcohol purchase age and advertising is well outside it.
Well, can I just say that this here is the third reading, and often it's a reading that encompasses everything that's been said in the debate, and the member is doing just that. Call the Honourable Member Gareth Hughes.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I don't want to waffle because, in fact, I'm late. I'm accepting a petition from Gisborne to save their local rail line on the steps, so I will push on. So we've got a drinking problem in this country, and the most effective thing we could have done was reducing the blood alcohol level to 0.05.
Point of order. Point of order, the Honourable Member, Michael Woodhouse.
Without wishing to challenge your ruling, Mr Speaker, I wonder if you would explain then Speaker's ruling 1174.1, which says that the member cannot discuss any matter not included in the clauses of the bill.
That's right. Well, the member can actually do that, and the reality is that it is a third reading debate. A third reading debate often refers to things that's gone on through the committee stages of the House. I didn't hear that debate, but it may well be that the member did that. But if the member had just waited, the Honourable Member Gareth Hughes had changed his stance and was moving back towards what he'd started with. Call the Honourable Member.
That's correct, Mr Speaker. I was pushing on. Obviously,
Order.
alcohol is the key part of this bill, and that's what I was referring to. We should be reducing today to 0.05 the blood alcohol level. We know the NZTA's estimates. We could be saving between 15 and 33 lives. We could be saving 686 people in this country from serious injuries. The evidence is there. More than 300 international reports show we should be doing this. Public opinion, for maybe the first time in decades, is on side. I acknowledge the Labour Party discussed it but didn't cross that bridge to reduce it when they were in government. But the evidence, the public opinion, is on side. We're not talking about going on a limb, we're just talking about moving into the international norm. 23 other OECD nations have reduced their blood alcohol level to 0.05. It's only going in line with the World Health Organization guideline. And Mr Speaker, I'd just like to finish with what I found to be the most compelling submission from the Select Committee process from Professor Doug Salmon, and I'll just read a quote from him, which was, Mr Speaker, we've legalised drunk driving in New Zealand with our current blood alcohol level. Decisions like these make me ashamed to be a New Zealander. Let every death and every injury that occurs in fellow citizens over the next 2 years and the suffering of their family be felt by those members of Parliament who are actively conspiring against the safety, the health, the well-being of ordinary New Zealanders for the sake of other agendas, by supporting more research rather than action now on legal drunk driving. I say to those members of Parliament, shame, who sit back and do nothing while the scandalous decision is passed into the law. Mr Speaker, we're missing a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to tackle these serious issues, and while we support the bill and the intent, we lament the missed opportunity. Kia ora.
Kia ora, good speak.